Welcome to the Six Hats podcast, where I, Dr. Shami, a lifestyle and nutritional medicine family doctor, will talk about how women strive to find balance each day by juggling their six roles, being a woman, mother, daughter, partner, business owner, and professional. Welcome to the Six Hats podcast, and today I'm speaking with Paul Kent. He's the owner of Homebush Pastoral Farm here in Victoria. Now, what's different about Paul is that he follows traditional, natural, and holistic farming that dates back to 1952. His farm is dedicated to regenerative agricultural practices and biodynamics, which we're going to get into in this podcast. Now, his self-replacing British breed herd thrives on a diet of mother's milk, grass, herbs, and shrubs with no artificial fertilizers or feedlotting involved. Now, what I also love is that the soil is volcanic, enriched by sunshine, moisture, and natural biology, and ensures nutrient-dense meat with exceptional flavor. And Paul, I have to say, your meat's amazing. I love eating it. So welcome, Paul.
Oh, thank you, Shami. Yeah, it's a pleasure to being invited to come in and speak on a topic that I'm very passionate about, not only farming, but also healthy aspects of life as well. So I enjoy listening and reading. And so it's nice to be able to come along and talk.
Amazing, amazing. So love to start with, how did it all begin? Like, you're so passionate about this industry. How did you sort of get into farming?
And, it's a long-winded answer, that, Shami. I won't give away my age, but I've lived a life and I've done various things. But I mean, I've been lucky enough to have been involved in farming or around farming for the majority of my life. Well, I'm a third generation farmer now. My grandparents were the owners of the property originally. They started farming on this particular property in 1952. So as you said, so there's a bit of a long history there for my family, but I've recently gone back to farming, having done a few different things. The main one that I've done, it's all been food related, but having grown up on the farm and being involved there, the opportunity wasn't there at that particular time to go into farming. So food's another big passion of mine, and food was the mainstay for me for many years. I had my own business in a bakery cafe with my wife, Kate, and artisan baking was a big passion of mine. Why I'm sort of bringing that up now is because it didn't scare me to go into biological farming, because I have that biological background in baking, which, believe it or not, it's very hard to probably comprehend, but the two are fairly interlocked and work on similar platforms. So chemical farming to me was probably something that scared the hell out of me, because I just, there's so many facets to it, and my story is probably one that I could go on for quite a while on it, why I sort of steered away from that direction, which the majority of the farming practices are sort of operating on those platforms now. I've gone along the biological system, which is where the biodynamics come into play, Shami.
Amazing. I think this is a great sort of segue to actually understand those terms, because I'm new to it, I'm learning. And so a great place to start. What exactly do you mean by biodynamic farming?
Biodynamic farming it's encompassing the whole system as a living identity. So that comes from the soil, the plants, the animals, the humans, the sky, the water, everything we sort of look at. We're watching innately for changes or subtleness that we think that could bring benefits or could bring the opposite, could be detrimental to the effect of our animals and also the soil. The soil is probably it's the beginning of most of the amazing things that take place in nature. It is the point where we really hone in on, and we have to really start there. As a biodynamic farmer, we use a few subtleties that other farmers don't do. One of them, we have a range of what we call biodynamic preparations, and most people probably would be aware of the preparation 500, which is a cow manure which is packed into a cow's horn and overwintered for 6 months effectively in the soil. It undertakes some specific changes to that cow manure and comes out as what we would call a humus-like product that is effectively full of biology, and it's a living thing in itself. And that product is then, we brew that in barrels, we mix that and we spray that out onto the soil, and that is activating the soil. It's like throwing out so much biology And there's rumored to be 500 million different things, living things inside this product. So that is a stimulant to our biodiversity there that really fires the whole system. And the rest of it is pretty much just working with nature. And we're reading different platforms. And inside biodynamics, obviously, there's different people that are doing different things. I'm grazing cattle, finishing beef, but we do have biodynamic market gardeners and there's orchardists. So they're using the same ethos, but they're delivering it in slightly different formats depending on their area of farming.
And Paul, what would be the difference to the other type of farming? Because you mentioned actually when we were chatting that biodynamic farmers are very few and far between. And what did you say? It was about 1%?
Yeah, we're very much a minority out there. I mean, there's some naturalistic farmers, there's some organic farmers, but biodynamics is about not so much bringing in any inputs onto the farm. It's a low cost of form of farming. It's a very natural way of farming. And we're looking to use the living biology to in not only finish our products into a product, food form or whatever, but as nutritiously as we can. So that's hopefully then providing the people that are eating or consuming those products with a much more nutrient dense product to gain their health from.
Amazing.
Yeah, and also like looking after nature. That's the big thing, looking at the system as a one.
If I was to do a really quick summary, so it would be like no antibiotics, no hormones, those kind of things that another farmer would use. Would that be right?
That's correct. We use no chemical inputs whatsoever allowed into biodynamics. And so that is a definite no-no. But if we do biodynamics well and we work with nature, we don't have the necessity to be using antibiotics, vaccinations, and all those bits and bobs that possibly are used a fair bit in farming these days, because we're relying on the health of the soil, and that's giving us the ability to have such great health in our animals or our plants that we just don't come under attack from pests and diseases.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Bit of a sidetrack because you also mentioned something about Demeter method, and I'm not sure if I'm actually pronouncing that correctly. You're transitioning to this type of biodynamics. What does that mean?
So Demeter was set up in Europe back in the 20s, and it's been in Australia. Alex Podolinsky brought it to Australia effectively in the 50s. And Demeter Australian method has been adapted to the landscape because we farm on such big open landscapes as compared to the European farmers of the past. It had to be rediscovered in a matter that was actually going to be able to be suitably used, because we're so few in numbers of farmers on the massive acreage. They had to look and explore. So Alex tweaked things quite considerably, and we do have all the preparations effectively, apart from a couple or one, into 500, which is called preparation 500 now. And then we barrel mix that and spray that out. And we can cover large areas of land now with this system. And it's been adapted and there's been great success. And some of the European people are actually adapting the Australian Demeter method. But the basis of biodynamics is very similar. It's the same, I would say, across the world, and it is in most countries. But I do believe that Demeter do such a fabulous job of making sure the preparations are made very well. And that's critical to the outcomes in the farming side of things.
Amazing, amazing. Just a few more other things that we want to clarify, and it's all going to make sense. So, this is a message to the listeners. It's all going to make sense because we're going to go back to health and why this is so important. But, Paul, what do you mean by self replacing cow and calf operation?
So, our system, yeah, as you just said then, Shami, we work on a self replacing calf operation. The platform is retain the best of our young females and we grow them out to maturity. And they're there because, like everything in the living world, everything has a date it's used by effectively, I guess. So by doing this, having a living, working, natural system running, I believe that everything living does have a certain level of intelligence, and the cow is quite unique. She's very smart. So by doing that, we have the mums teaching the bubs effectively the things on our land that can be harmful and the things that actually are beneficial. And this is passed down through the generations of the animals, and they understand our landscape. And there is a few things that are on my landscape, being rocky, undulating barrier country. We have a lot of biodiversity going on, and there is a few things there that can be harmful to the animal and also, detrimental, effectively ending their life if they eat these things. So the mothers are there to actually advise. It's no different to the way that humans, I think, work and operate, but it's just in different formats.
Amazing.
Yeah, Fred Provenza was a great read. Fred has written a book called Nourished, and I learned a lot from reading that book. And it goes into the depths of the intelligence of the animal world. It was a good read.
Amazing. Thanks for clarifying that, because I can just picture the massive difference from buying meat from a supermarket versus buying from you, and knowing where the meats come from, knowing how the cows are treated, knowing what they're fed. It's so, so important. And coming down to the health point of view, I always advise my patients to eat grass-fed meat. It is so important. Hormone-free, grass-fed meat, so important. And why animal protein is so important. And let's go on to grass-fed. Why is that different to grain or grass pellet fed?
That's a really good question. And it's probably something that mainstream doesn't touch on. And, it's something that we probably need to get out there more. There is a difference. And one of the big ones, I believe, is the difference in the omegas, the omega 3s. We're talked about deep sea fish, the benefits of that. But we don't get that. It doesn't correspond across to the animal world, like you said, in terms of beef. Working on a biological system and eating meat that's coming from these systems, we're getting such more diversity of nutrition and also the density of the nutrition, I believe. And I think we can explore this a little bit more as we go through as eaters by understanding the texture and the flavour. If we get a piece of meat that's not full of seasonings and flavourings, we can get a good understanding of, I believe, like where that meat's come from. And also the texture can be a good indication of it as well. The intravascular fat that comes from the feedlot animal is something that is similar in humans. I would imagine, Dr. Sharma, you would be much better pointed at going into this. But the intravascular fat, I'm led to believe, that builds up inside the animal that's on the force feedlot type system is actually detrimental to our heart health. So there's that perspective, but I'll let you go into that a little bit more. And then obviously grain versus grass, there's the animal welfare issues as well that come into play here. And then the other big one, which is if you're we believe working on a natural system where we're rotationally grazing the animals, the carbon and the methane emissions on a biological system are another big factors that are in today's terminology, aren't they? So we could explore those further. But if we've got a fully functioning alive system, we're drawing down a lot of carbon not into the soil. So we're not only giving good flavoured meat and full of nutrition, but we're also doing things for the environment, aren't we?
Absolutely. And I think if we put it into simple terms, when you're eating an animal, what did the animal eat? And that's sort of passed on to how nutritious that animal is. And I think that's something to really, really think about. And I'm not sure about Australian animals in terms of grain fed, whether it's GMO corn. This is something that's quite common in America. But would you know what kind of grains other cows are fed here?
Well, this is the problem that we've got. In the feedlot, we really don't know what's being fed because, it's not on the label, is it? When we go into the butcher shop or we go into the supermarket, the label doesn't say, oh, this has been sprayed with this or this has been fed this or this has been done that. This is why I'm a big advocate for people to getting reconnection with one another talking to their farmers. And that's not always easy, but the farmers market or scrolling a little bit online and trying to find somebody who can give you some answers to this and point you into the right direction, because there's so many different layers in the systems that if you don't know what's going on, it can be a minefield to walk through all this. So getting to know farmers and the eaters need to reconnect more, Shami,
I love that, Paul. I love that. So another thing that we're going to go on to is soil health. And I'm a massive fan of this. And I keep saying, so often I get asked, why do I need supplements? Why do I need nutrients? And I'm not a massive advocate of supplements. I think We really need to get it from our nutrition. However, the problem we have is our soil health, and it's so deficient in nutrients now that it's actually really hard to get. And so moving on to soil health for your cows, how do you do this?
Soil health, as I said previously, it's the biggest critical factor that I need to really hone in on. And biodynamic farming is about using your eyes, ears, all those feelings. I need to explore all those on a daily basis and understand what's going on. And I have to make my decisions around effectively the soil health, because that is where it's all starting and that's where it finishes effectively. But the we need to do that for the not only for the end result, but the animal's health is something that we can see as farmers as well. We don't get a lot of issues if we're on a fully functioning alive soil. The other things that say farmers would be getting, which would be more symptom related, like pink eye, milk fever, grass tetany. We don't need to vaccinate our animals, not just simply because we say we don't want to. It's just because our animals are healthy enough, getting enough nutrient density out of the soil, this symbiotic relationship between the soil and the plants, that they don't need it. They don't get sick. So why use something when you don't have to? It's very similar to what you just said, Charmy, about the human consuming multivitamins and so forth. Our animals don't need all these prop up type measures because we're giving it to them through the plant, through that symbiotic relationship with the plant and the soil. And the other thing is we don't have to use drenches on our animals. You know, they don't get wormy because we're rotationally grazing as well as the health of the soil. We're not relying on the vets to come in and prop up our animals because their microbiomes are strong and efficient, and they're functioning and they're having optimal health from nature, which is, I guess it relates to the human in similar ways, would you think? Or
Absolutely. We always talk about the gut microbiome. It's talked more and more about, and gastroenterologists, specialists in the gut are talking more about it, which is great. It's been a long time because, for example, when you look at a patient's history, they often had multiple courses of antibiotics, multiple, probably from the age of 1. And it starts from birth in terms of cesarean sections, poor gut microbiome, and the whole cycle starts with ear infections and antibiotics, and that's destroying the gut microbiome. And to be honest, not many doctors really think about it when they give antibiotics and how important it is for immunity, mental health, weight management. So they say health starts from the gut and how important that diversity is, and it's very easily destroyed. So you're absolutely right. And I love how you said your animals are healthy. This is
yeah,
great.
it's very interesting. You see the correlation there in the patients is good because we see it, through seeing other animals that are in the system versus our animals, and we just don't get those complications. So the heavy lifters, in my belief, are the soil biology. Like my dung beetles, my worms, and all the various little bits and bobs that are in the soil. And there's in every teaspoon of soil, there's effectively more than 1 billion living organisms inside that teaspoon. So what they're doing and what they're providing, I mean, I'm no expert in this field, but I've seen enough of my animals to see there's something quite unbelievable going on in there that's giving them health.
Amazing, amazing. This is a perfectly to lead on to a few myths that I normally address with my patients about eating animal protein and why that's so important. And it's really interesting how it's so common to see many people undereat protein. And why is that important? When you look at your plate, is it packed with carbs rather than protein? And we often don't think about protein. So protein, yes, you get it in the vegetable form and then you get it in the animal form. I'm a massive advocate for animal protein. And the reason is over 90% bioavailable compared to about 50%, 40 to 50% in plants, but you also get all the key amino acids. And so you're just not getting enough protein when you're eating just plants. You've got to get sources from animal protein. And it's phenomenal. Why is protein important? It breaks down to all the amino acids which are needed for every part of the body, and it goes down antibodies, immunity, all your happy chemicals like serotonin, dopamine, all of that. It's just phenomenal what you need. So if we really put it into simple terms, energy, mood, hormones. It's phenomenal what we need protein for. And patients do come in feeling tired, mental health is not great. We go right back to why protein is so important. And believe it or not, they feel so much better. But there's so many conversations I have with patients because one of the biggest fear is of eating animal protein. They just don't like the idea of killing animals. And I just loved what you just mentioned there about the soil, and it contains a billion different organisms. I think it's worth having this discussion, Paul, about how monocrop vegetables kill thousands of small animals. So I often say is whatever you eat, whatever's on your plate is a result of killing something.
Yeah, that's very true. And, like the biodynamic market gardeners that I see, they do minimal disturbance with their soil. They still do turn the soil, but they're very mindful that they don't damage the soil and break up that soil structure too much. But I mean, monocrop is like, there's so many things there that we can just dive into. We could probably spend an hour talking about this, but the poisons that are used, and there's fungicides and insecticides and all these things that they're turning out on top of these plants to turn out the articles, it's killing the biology in the soil, which we just spoke about, more than a billion in a teaspoon. So I would not even be able to comprehend the amount of damage that's done to the biology by using these things, and especially on monocrops. The small mammals that are destroyed when we're doing work in the fields, like with the big machinery, and also from the chemical side of things. The reptiles and the frogs, they're so susceptible to all this stuff as well, let alone talk about the millions of insect life that's destroyed as well. And then to top it all off, if they desiccate these crops, which is going on because of the weather patterns or something's not quite going to plan, the glyphosate that's getting poured out on the top of these at the very end of the cycle when the plant is at maturity, where we're holding the grain or the legume or the pulse, I just believe that that's probably doing a lot of damage to our microbiomes and just all those things that you spoke about. So I'm really quite passionate about this. We're taking a life of the animal at times. Yes, we have to, because we've got to look after the soil and looking at it as a complex unit. It's all a living, working identity. But that one life has done so much for that landscape. And then it provides us with so much additional health benefits as humans. But we're just got to be mindful that the fact that the monocrop vegetables that's going on, it's causing a lot of issues to a lot of other things, isn't it? So we do get demonised as farmers of cattle from time to time from a lot of avenues, but there's a lot of other things that need to be unpacked there as well, Shami.
I agree. I agree. And I love it. We put in a nice summary, but what it does, it just plants the seed of having a think about why do people feel so strongly about it? And for many of my patients, they're just not aware of how those vegetables got onto your plate versus how meat gets onto your plate. So when they're aware, it actually gets them to start thinking, hold on a sec, why am I choosing more vegetables versus no meat? And it really is great. So all what we're doing is just planting the seed, getting you to think, are you making the right choices for your own health? And could it be different so you feel better? It just really boils down to that. So the conversation I tend to have is I don't like how animals are treated. So I'd love for you to share what happens on your farm.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's a big part of what we're doing. We're trying to protect our animals because they're performing such a massive function for us in the landscape. The cow, she's so undervalued in society, or in the human. As humans, we undervalue what she does. She provides so many different things that help us with living our lives and our health. So we want to really honour her in terms of looking after her. And, our animals are continually rotated around the farm. They get to go onto fresh pasture every day or two. We've got lovely sheltered barrier country that they enjoy. They get to enjoy really good mineralised spring water from our farm as well. So, they're able to enjoy the benefits of good, clean water, which is probably something else that we need to be critical of as well, is the liquid that we're consuming. And ours is obviously filtered through the rocky basalt country that we're on. I think that I like to pride myself on the fact that we are holistically grazing and we're using a low stress environment for our animals, which is sort of, I think it's a reflection back on the way the meat and the quality of the meat comes up at the end result. And I mean, biodynamic farming is just really encompassing all those aspects there. I think there's so many positives, and it's the way that the life is that we have to look after all the living things that unfortunately there's just that one bad day that the animal probably has, but there's so many good days in their life that it keeps the whole system alive, Shami, and it's just a symbiotic relationship. It's all one, it's all revolving, and if we don't take some of the animals off and then obviously we can use them for our health, the whole system will collapse. So it's critical that we do take some of these animals out from time to time. And we take the animals out when the land tells us it's time to take the animals out. Because we don't feedlot our animals come off the system when nature's saying it's time. So we don't have animals available all year round. We're truly a seasonal product, but that's part of the way that we want to farm. So we encourage our people that enjoy eating our meat and connecting with us. If they would like to eat some in the off season, we have a cryovac and we freeze. So we're not propping the animal up, trying to keep it alive on some unnutritious staple that's really detracting from its life and to its full potential.
Amazing. Amazing. So this is a great time to end with, where can people find you to try your meat?
So we're a paddock to plate type farm that we've got set up. My wife runs a regenerative cafe in Camperdown. It's in Manifold Street. It's called Excuse Me Katie's. And so you can sample the meat on the menu there. She does a wicked steak sandwich and a beef burger, along with many other biodynamic treasures. So there's the option there. And I do run an Instagram page, which is Homebush Pastoral. So if anybody'd like to join in there, and I add little snippets, try to add in there and give a glimpse of what's going on our farm and a bit of an overall view of how we're doing things and what's going on. And I put up the meat availability as well. So that's another avenue. Yeah, I think through that, I'm happy to talk to people too. If anybody would like to, have a conversation, I'm more than open to discussing all this stuff as well. So the more that we can spread the word about healthy farming, I think the better off we're going to be as a society.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we'll put all the links in our show notes. Plus, if listeners want to go to the Mint website, we've featured Paul as well. So it's easy to get hold of. Thank you so much for your time today, Paul.
Oh, thank you, Shami. It's been fabulous.
Remember that this is general advice only. Please see your healthcare professional for more information. So what's your take-home message today? Remember, it's all about progress and not perfection. And are you suffering from stress? Visit the Usawa Learning Hub on usawa.com.au for more resources on how to de-stress, re-energize, and reclaim your health. Enjoy the journey.